Community Unity Now, the D Tycoon Show. My co-host, Bill Morton, president of the Rogers Park Chamber of Commerce, had to take care of family and could not be with us today. I am Trudy Leong, administrator of the Rogers Park Chamber of Commerce. Our very special guest today is Natalia Borowska. She is the Policy and Community Engagement Specialist at the Small Business Advocacy Council. Welcome, Natalia.
Thank you, Trudy.
Thank you so much. Well, the Small Business Advocacy Council has so much work on its hands to help small businesses. And for the past couple of years, you've been working on the Chicago Small Business Package. Could you give us a little overview about that?
Yeah, so the Chicago Small Business Package, essentially that is a package of legislation that we have come up with working with our Neighborhood Revitalization Coalition. They really have their ear to the ground on some of the issues that the small business community has been facing in the city of Chicago. So we have responded to that by creating this package of legislation for the city of Chicago.
In other words, in order for a community to be revitalized and thrive, we need the small businesses thriving as well. And these initiatives are suggested by the small businesses because that would help them get through some red tape, a lot of red tape.
Yeah, yes, definitely. A lot of the processes as they currently stand in the city have a lot of red tape that are difficult for small businesses to navigate, so we're trying to alleviate that.
Mm-hmm. And could you give us some examples of that red tape?
Yeah, so for example, one ordinance that we actually have right now in City Council is changing the special use permit process, in which it is no longer the Zoning Board of Appeals to be the department to review that, but rather the zoning administrator to review special use permit applications and make a determination on whether or not to approve those.
Mm-hmm. So it would be one person going before like a judge, but one person administrator to ask about the...
Yes, as opposed to, getting your initial application denied and having it sent over to the Zoning Board of Appeals and having them review it, because that is, lost time for the small business.
Mm-hmm. So there were several levels before, but now you're hoping that there will only be one level, but it hasn't been accomplished yet. You're working toward
Yes,
that.
that is the ordinance that we currently have in City Hall.
Okay. And what's the status of it, do you know?
So right now it's sitting in the zoning committee. We intend for the ordinance to have a hearing in February. So in the next couple of weeks, we'll have an update on how that hearing goes.
Mm-hmm. And then what else is in the small business, the Chicago Small Business Package?
So a couple of different other things as well. Eliminating the requirement for special use permit applications to be notarized. Eliminating the requirement for an expert witness to present at the ZBA hearing. Creating more transparency if an application was to be denied by the city, requiring that license denials explain exactly why an application was denied, so that way the small business could understand why their application was denied and then resend their application with that mistake fixed.
Mm-hmm. And before, when they were denied, they had nowhere to go. They didn't understand why, and it was hard for them to reapply because they didn't know what they did wrong.
Yeah, it's a very long process and very hard to navigate. So, without given exactly the reason why you were denied, it might be hard to look back and find that error that was potentially made.
So do the small businesses, do the owners, small business owners navigate all this red tape by themselves, or do they have legal help, or does it vary?
Yeah, well, some of them, try to manage it by themselves. Otherwise, they do hire attorneys, experts, things of that sort, but that, of course, is very costly for the small business and timely, and we do want to reduce that unnecessary burden for the small businesses.
Mm-hmm. And that's why they came to the Small Business Advocacy Council, because it was such a burden for them to establish their business.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. Okay, what else is in the Chicago Small Business Package that you are working on the Chicago side?
Yeah, well, Another one that I haven't mentioned already is requiring inspections to be done in a timely and consistent manner. There's several points in here. Right now, the latest update is that we have an ordinance on that zoning board of appeals component that I mentioned earlier. It's currently an ordinance in the city of Chicago, and we intend for additional ordinances from this package to follow in the next couple of months.
Mm-hmm. So in other words, presently, the inspectors could come in at any time, and the businesses would rather that they have at least a little heads up. Is that what?
Yeah, sometimes it's the case where business waits weeks and weeks for an inspection to happen, and that really prevents them from getting the needed license that they're trying to get in a timely manner, potentially even preventing them from opening their operation, which again a necessary red tape, a necessary hurdle that we really want to eliminate. We want to make sure that small businesses can can operate in a timely manner, and so that's one way that we intend to improve that.
Well, thanks for clarifying. So these inspections are those inspections pre-opening the business
Yes.
for to establish the license. It's not like the business is already open and those kind of periodic inspections. These are the pre ones. Okay. Anything else on the Chicago side?
Yeah, I think we covered most of it. The SBAC also has a state legislative agenda that we put out ahead each year, so that folks know what we're going to be doing in Springfield as well on the state side.
And you do have a legislative trip coming up in the spring too, and you do this the Small Business Advocacy Council does this legislative lobbying in Springfield every year?
Yes, we try to do it at least every year, and essentially it's a day of lobbying for the SBAC. We invite our members to come and help advocate for the small business community. So that's a day jam-packed with meetings with state representatives, state senators, different state departments and agencies to help promote the current legislation that we have in Springfield.
So the more people that show up, then the legislators see that it's an important issue that that's on the table before them.
Yeah, definitely. That is attendance is something that legislators will notice if they do see that there is a very large community that supports an initiative. Then that will get them to pay attention to it more. It'll maybe even encourage them to support the legislation. So.
Let's talk about the occupational licensing legislation that you're working on.
Yeah. So that is the prior act. We're working with the IJ Clinic on Entrepreneurship on that. So essentially that is legislation that would put a hold on any occupational licenses from being created for a year period. And during that year period, the state legislator will create a review process. So they'll determine what they want to ask an application to determine whether or not a new occupational license is necessary in the state of Illinois. And so, after that year period, we hope that a review process would be developed and made.
Okay, so for our audience that does not know about occupational licensing, there is a department of Illinois Department of Professional Standards and Licensing that has that operates that oversees a whole hundreds of different licenses. And these licenses that you are talking about involve new skill sets that certain industries might need to make sure that the employees that will be working in that industry will have the skills necessary, and then they want to establish new occupational licenses that have to be approved by the legislature, the whole legislature. Well, that is kind of hard, but so the industries feel that these licenses are necessary.
I mean, it depends on the license, of course, right? But right now, the state of Illinois has over 130 occupational licenses. So with that number growing, we want to make sure that the occupational licenses that do come up, are actually necessary, as opposed to adding an unnecessary burden for that department, right? Because it is timely and costly for the department to make, to be monitoring those occupational licenses, making sure everybody is in compliance with them and things of that sort. So, yeah.
And you're trying to have uniform questions across the different licenses that the different occupational licenses that might come up. Right?
Yeah, this will give the legislator an opportunity to really dive deep and think about what it is exactly we want to ask and what we want to consider when considering a new occupational license.
Mm-hmm. And right now, there are no uniform questions across the different
Right.
licenses. Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
And that you're asking for a 1-year moratorium, so that the licenses and the questions can be decided about
Yes.
which ones are uniform, which would be most helpful.
Right, so this would give the legislator a year period to really establish that review process.
So a whole bunch of legislators would be talking about that to try to decide which questions would be okay. And what's the response from the various industries? Do they would like that too?
I mean, my assumption is that they would be in favor of it, just because, if you require your employees to make sure they're constantly in compliance with an occupational license, it's an additional, potentially unnecessary burden that they have to continue to monitor. So that's why they would be in support of, making sure that the occupational licenses that exist to keep Illinoisans safe and healthy, as opposed to, the era of an occupational license existing when it's not necessary for it to be.
Exactly. And then there are other initiatives too on the state legislative agenda that pertain to employees.
Yes. So we do have a handful of different things. We have the Small Business Job Creation Act. We have the Small Business Growth and Opportunity Act. So the Small Business Growth and Opportunity Act, that is an initiative we're trying to push forward, where at least 50% of the grants and tax incentives the tax incentives in the state of Illinois go to small businesses, and we define small businesses as businesses with less than 50 employees. So we want to make sure that the state money is also supporting the small business community. We also are going to be trying to develop what is known as a self-employment assistance program. So essentially, that would expand the unemployment benefits, where if you have been recently let go from your employer, maybe now that acts as a catalyst for you to open up your own business, right? Maybe you are mid to senior level in your career, maybe you've always wanted to be a small business owner, and by the unfortunate situation of losing your job, that catalyzes you to develop your own business. Well, currently, to receive unemployment benefits in the state of Illinois, you need to indicate that you are spending your time in applying for new jobs. However, if you're looking to start a new business, of course, you're not applying for a new job, right? So this act would expand unemployment eligibility, unemployment insurance eligibility, where if you have been let go but you're looking to open up a new business of your own, then you are still able to get unemployment insurance benefits as you are building your business.
And what about employment insurance as well, and the medical insurance?
Yeah, so in terms of medical insurance, that's something that we did last year. The SBAC really helped promote health insurance policies to help with transparency and things of that sort. So that is one of our legislative wins from last year.
Well, that's very timely, judging from all the pushback against not getting claims adjusted properly, etc. Okay, what else is on the agenda for Illinois, the lobbying trip?
Yeah, so another thing I would highlight is the Center for Business Ownership, Succession, and Employee Ownership. So that center was actually developed by law several years ago, before the Pritzker administration even. However, the center was never funded. So what we're going to try to do in Springfield this year is making sure that office is funded and fully functioning. So a lot of of the small business community have told us, the unfortunate situation where a small business that has been in a community for decades, right? Now that the ownership is looking to retire, they end up selling the business, or unfortunately the business ends up closing down, even though, it was a staple in the community. So with this center, it will allow for businesses to understand what employee-owned businesses are, what that model looks like, and make the determination if that is a shift in the business that they would want to move towards. So that way, upon that business owner's retirement, the business could still exist. And so we are going to be advocating for that department to be funded.
Do you know if recently in Rogers Park we have Clark Devine Hardware, and that business became employee-owned.
Mm-hmm.
Was that something that would probably what you described, that the owners probably wanted to retire, and then the business became employee-owned? Is that sometimes what happens?
I'm not entirely sure what it was in that situation. It's very possible that, yes, it was a situation where, the owners retired. But from what we've heard from chambers of commerce and the small business community, that is what oftentimes does lead a business to consider the employee ownership option. Like I said, a lot of small businesses play a critical role in the community, right? They have a base of customers that really, do enjoy that business. And so, of course, you don't want to close down your business if there's alternatives to it. So that's why we want to make sure that businesses are fully aware of what their options are, and are able to consider the employee ownership and see if that's a good option for their business.
So if that center were funded, though, it would provide the different options for the businesses to decide what to do if the owner retires. Is there anything else that the center will help the business with?
So it would largely be focused on ownership succession, employee ownership, just supporting small businesses if they are in a situation where it's time for them to start planning ahead for their business. The center will help them make a game plan for years to come.
Eventually, that happens a lot because not all businesses have the next generation to take over.
Yeah, from what we hear, that is the situation a lot of the time. Where small business owners, their children, for example, don't want to take on the business for whatever reason, but that doesn't mean that the business has to shut down, right?
Let's talk about the members of the Small Business Advocacy Council. Who are the people behind you, and how do they work together?
Yeah, so one of our main groups that we lead is the Neighborhood Revitalization Coalition. I think I kind of alluded to the group a little bit earlier, but that is a coalition of different organizations that are interested in promoting small businesses in Chicago, as well as reducing wide-scale commercial vacancy in the city of Chicago. So we have different chambers of commerce in that coalition from all sides of the city, which is really nice. We get a lot of different perspectives, a lot of different businesses and things of that sort, which we enjoy. And so that coalition, we meet on a monthly basis to discuss what we're doing advocacy-wise. That is a great way that we learn about what's going in the small business community. We have discussions as to, what problems the small business community is facing, and then we do have a really good discussion on some potential policy solutions for those, and we create a game plan to advocate for policies that we set forth. So it's a great coalition that really fuels this work.
Well, for business vacancies, we see them almost across the city. So what has the Neighborhood Revitalization Coalition done regarding vacancies over the past couple of years?
Yeah, so certainly a lot. One thing that does come to mind is I know that the Small Business Advocacy Council, as a result of the Neighborhood Revitalization Coalition, we helped change some policies within Cook County in terms of wide-scale commercial vacancy, and incentivizing property owners to no longer keep their commercial property vacant. So in recent years, definitely the Small Business Advocacy Council has been very active in that space.
In other words, the landlords were getting property tax breaks because just to keep because the property was vacant, so they didn't have the incentive to fill the storefronts. Well, even now, we are in Rogers Park and we still see a lot of the vacancies. I think that there's still more work to be done because those vacancies are not being filled.
Yeah, definitely. And that's, where the Chicago Small Business Package comes along. We definitely hope to bring even more business to the city of Chicago, help businesses develop in the city, help even businesses go from maybe virtual operations to brick and mortar establishments so that we could eliminate commercial vacancy.
And when do the business owners and the members of the coalition, besides the tax breaks that incentivize those landlords to not renting out their storefronts, what else was mentioned? Do you still remember that? Why they would keep those storefronts vacant besides getting those tax breaks?
I do think that it's just bringing more business to the city, encouraging businesses to develop in the city as opposed to moving to the suburbs, for example, right? So that's why we really try to push things like the Chicago Small Business Package to make sure that no unnecessary burdens exist, that we could really eliminate anything that isn't really necessary in the process of a business developing, and then we could encourage more business development in the city.
Yes, in other words, it's a full circle. It depends on the landlord to have that property, to rent out that property, but we need the businesses to be willing and to have enough support to actually come in to rent that storefront. And the Small Business Advocacy Council is trying to help facilitate that.
Yeah.
Okay, what anything else on the legislative, the Illinois legislative agenda that you want to mention before we end the show, and you could give us some information about how our viewers could get more information about the Small Business Advocacy Council?
Yeah, definitely. I think I covered. Oh, you know what? If time allows, I'll bring up another good advocacy effort that we have pushing this year, and that is the small business property tax relief. So essentially, that will give a tax incentive for a business that owns its commercial property in which it's operating from, a tax credit that is equal to 10% of their annual property taxes with a cap of $1,500. So if passed, this would give that tax credit to businesses to kind of offset the costs of high property taxes.
And high property taxes is a common complaint of business owners too, the SBAC? And anything else that, let's see,
I think we covered a lot of it, but I do encourage folks to learn more about the SBAC by visiting our website. That's www.sbacil.org. All of our legislative agendas are there. You can learn more details about our legislation. We have one-pagers and a lot of quick fact sheets to help folks understand exactly what the legislation that we're trying to advocate for is. You can learn more about the Neighborhood Revitalization Coalition that I mentioned, and you could find information on our website about how to get involved in the SBAC.
And it's not only small business owners that could get involved. Even the citizens that voters and residents, if they want to help their community be more vibrant and have more businesses, they could also join the effort.
Yes, definitely. We invite everybody to come and support the small business community.
Okay, thank you so much, Natalia Borowska, the Policy and Community Engagement Specialist at the Small Business Advisory Council, SBAC, for joining us on Community Unity Now, the D-Tycoon Show. Thank you so much for watching. I am Trudy Liang, Administrator of the Rogers Park Chamber of Commerce. We'll see you again next week.